welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you don't know me, my name is Sarah, and if you do know me, you should know my name already. Welcome. I just wanted to make this video today and talk a little bit about my sobriety journey. So I've officially been sober for 8 months now. This month of May becomes 8 months. Last year, September of 2025, I was tired of just the entire cycle that I was going through, of the constant, I'm gonna quit smoking and then I go back, and then I'm gonna not drink as much, and then I end up drinking just even more. And if you don't know anything about me, I am from Brazil, and the age drinking in Brazil is 18, so you basically start drinking at like 14. And I had my first drink, I think I was like 11, not that anyone gave me that, anyways. And I kind of like experienced what it was like to feel drunkenness at 11 years old. And then obviously I didn't keep drinking, which I know that for some people, they probably kept drinking at that age. So if you can relate to that, makes me feel a little better. But anyway, then I started drinking more when I was like 13, 14, a little bit more. And then around 15 through like 16 and 17, I was drinking often, whether it was with friends, by myself. I would find a way to drink. And I didn't like drinking. I just liked the way it made me feel. I just like the feeling of escaping and not really having to think or feel whatever it was that I was thinking or feeling. So then I was drinking a lot, whatever. And then when I was around 16 or 17, I smoked for the first time. I smoked weed for the first time. And I felt like I was just like in heaven, which as a Christian now, that's crazy to say. But I felt so relaxed. I felt like I didn't have to worry about anything. I felt like I didn't have to care about anything, which eventually a couple years later, it led me to when COVID really started in 2019. It led me to just starting to smoke weed every single day. Every day. I would tell myself, I'm not gonna do it today, and I would end up doing it every night. And then from every night, it became every morning, every afternoon, before every meal, before I hang out with my friends. And if you are a smoker, or if you've ever been, you know that when you smoke weed and you have friends who smoke weed, you want to do it with them as like an occasional thing, like it's not just like, oh, we're gonna go to dinner. Like, no, like we're gonna smoke and then we're gonna go to dinner. Or if you go to the beach, you're gonna smoke at the beach or before, whatever. Smoking became such a huge part of my life, and before I could even notice, I was so dependent on it that I couldn't sleep and I couldn't eat without smoking. And meanwhile, drinking, I kind of let that to the side, and I was just like, you know what, I don't really care for drinking. Like, I'll have a drink or two occasionally, but I was just like heavily into my smoking. But I also felt like whenever I would have a drink, I would go overboard and I would smoke too. So talking about this is crazy because I've never actually sat down and made like a video talking about like the entire story, and I'm trying to make this video short for the sake of my time and yours. But long story short, I just smoked every day, maybe like took a week break max, and maybe like 2 days max of a break when I was in college. And for 4 to 5 years, I was smoking every day, and I would drink occasionally, but every time I drank, I wanted to smoke. So, and it was very normalized. All of my friends did it. Everyone that I knew did it. And if they didn't, I was shocked. I was like, oh, really? But then I started going to church. I found such an amazing Christian church, and I grew up Catholic. So like I grew up Catholic, had this whole spiritual phase, which I can make a whole nother video about. And then once I started going to church, I would literally like smoke at night and then go to sleep, wake up in the morning, and then wake up, go to church, and I would have this insane conviction of like, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be smoking anymore. Like, if I love God and if I have accepted Jesus, then why am I relying on a substance to be okay? Like, okay, it helps with my anxiety, but at the same time, like, it's so temporary. Like, I constantly have to smoke to get that feeling again. And essentially, it's an unending cycle. And at that point, like, I didn't drink that much, but then again, every time I did drink, it would be like a total blackout situation. I actually remember my first day that I went to church ever, this church that I go to now. It was my 21st birthday back in 2023. And me and my friends went out to a brunch right after church, and I blacked out, fell and hit my head. And that was kind of like an eye-opening experience for me, because it's like, okay, like, what else could have happened, you know? Like, if I fell and hit my head, like, literally what else could have happened? But even after that day, like, I would still go out with friends, drink, smoke by myself, smoke with friends, and I was just relying on it so much for my own peace and for my own comfort. And I felt like that was really stopping me from growing as a person and also growing with my relationship with Jesus. And I know that people can smoke occasionally and drink occasionally, but for me, that wasn't the case. Like, every time that I smoked a little bit, I would want to smoke every day. Like, especially since it became such a big part of my life. If I woke up, I wanted to smoke already. You know, if it was lunchtime, I wanted to smoke beforehand. Then if it was like 4 p.m. and I wanted to take a nap, I wanted to smoke again. And then before bedtime, and then with friends. So it just became like such a huge thing that I wasn't able to control anymore. And I was like genuinely praying to God to help me to stop, because I felt like I couldn't do it. And I was like, okay, God, please help me. Like, I don't know what to do. I would try to not smoke for like a 10-day period. I think that I say 10 days because it lasted 10 days, and I was like, I'm done smoking, I'm not smoking anymore. But it was just so hard. Like, I physically couldn't stop. Like, I had like really bad withdrawals, and I was so depressed to the point that I thought about going on medications, which if you are on medications, that's completely fine. But I've never been on medication before, and I would just get so extremely sad, and I would feel like I had no purpose if I wasn't smoking weed. And then it's like, okay, well, I'm not smoking, so I can at least have a drink. Then I would have a drink or two, and then immediately after the drink hit my system, I wanted to smoke. And then essentially I would just smoke because I'm like, okay, well, I'm drunk, so nothing matters. And when you're really trying to grow in your faith, and also I'm really big into the gym, I'm really big into self-development, really big into all of these things, it's like when you're depending on an outside circumstance to help you mentally, essentially you're not really growing, you're just staying stagnant. Like, yeah, like you can go to the gym and hit this and that, but if I stop doing this one thing, everything else crumbles. And I didn't want to be like that. I was like getting really big into my faith. I was going to church every Sunday. I was quitting like other bad habits that I had in my life. I was reading my Bible more, and then I would read about being sober-minded. I would read about like God's love and God's grace and faithfulness. And I'm like, okay, like how can I be doing this and going to church, but generally inside of me, I feel like I can't stop doing this. Like, God didn't create me smoking weed. Like, God created me to be free and okay without an outside substance. And a lot of people that I even know, and I used to do that too, they can say like, oh, but weed grows from the ground, so it's earthly and it's from God. Well, there's this one Bible verse: you can do everything, but not everything is beneficial. And I'll probably put it on the screen, but it's like, just because weed grows from the ground does not mean you should abuse it. And that's literally what I was doing. So a lot of people don't understand like why I don't drink at all anymore and why I don't smoke at all anymore. So I guess this video is kind of to not only explain like my situation, not really explain, but to give you a testimony of if it happened to me, it can happen to you too. Because I genuinely felt like I could never stop smoking just because of how trapped I felt in that cycle of I stop and then I feel like I need it and then I do it again, and then I tell myself I'm gonna have balance now, but then every time I have balance I want to do it all the time, and then I end up giving in. So I had to go cold turkey. I had to go full cold turkey. And even when it comes to drinking as well, I had to go cold turkey, because like I said, every time I wanted to drink, I would drink and then want to smoke. And then it's like, first of all, why can I not just have one drink, right? Because in my head, it's like, if I'm just gonna have one drink, I'm not gonna feel anything. So if I'm not gonna feel anything, then why would I have a drink? And if I have one drink and I start to feel something, then I want to have another one and feel it even more. So therefore I decided I don't need to have a drink. I don't need to feel anything. I don't need to go outside of my way and find a substance that's gonna make me feel something that I'm not feeling right now. And you know what? It's really hard. It's really hard. I think about it almost every day. I think about how much, and like, this is gonna sound crazy to some people, especially if you know me personally, because you might think like, wow, like, do you need to go to rehab or like AA? And the thing is that when you're so self-aware about your patterns and about how things have affected you in your life, you just don't want to live like that anymore. Like, I probably could go out and have one drink, but then again, I know that one drink has led me astray so many times, where I will tell myself I'm having one drink, and then by the end of the night I've had 10 and I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. So, and this is so sad to me. So yeah, it got to the point where I just don't even want to have one drink. But I do think about it all the time. Like, not all the time, obviously, but people think that it's just easy. Like, it's just like, oh, you're gonna quit drinking and you're gonna quit smoking, and all of a sudden you're never gonna want it again. No, there's like a difference between me wanting it and me taking action towards it, and also me understanding that this is my flesh speaking, and my flesh wants to do a lot of things that my spirit don't. Therefore, I wake up sometimes and I wish that I could go and just smoke a J, just go to a random smoke shop and grab something and like make myself feel okay by hitting something that, yeah. So there's a lot of times where I'm going out with friends and they're getting a drink and I'm like, should I just get one drink, you know? Like, and then it's like, I honestly have just gotten to the point where I don't want anything to interfere with my relationship with God and my growth. And since I've experienced that before, like the clash, I am smart enough right now to say, no, I am not going to do this anymore. I am done. But at the same time, like, I just wanted to make it clear that if this is the path that you're on right now, you need to understand that temptation is always going to come knocking at your door. And I think like one of the biggest reasons why I'm making this video today, right now, is because last night I had a dream that I was smoking weed and that I was hanging out with friends that were smoking, and that there was just like weed everywhere, and I wanted to do it so bad. And in the dream, like, I felt bad already, and I was like, oh, like, should I really have done it? Like, I just didn't feel good. And then I woke up this morning and I was like, I'm just glad that was just a dream. Excuse me. But I've had so many dreams like that before, whether it's smoking weed or having a drink. I've had so many dreams like that before, where I wake up the next day and I'm like, oh, thank God that was just a dream, because I really don't want to go back to my old ways. So essentially, it just came down to, what kind of person am I trying to become? Am I trying to become a person that can say no to something that I know that is not going to bring me any benefit? Or am I a type of person that is just going to use these things to help myself get through the day, when I know that I have a God who has literally parted the Red Sea and brought people back from the dead, that is living right now for me and with me? Like, I don't want to feel like I am depending on anything that's not God. And that's basically the major reason to why I decided to stop. But the second major reason was because I didn't have self-control and I didn't have balance. And I truly believe that if you can't have self-control with something and you can't have balance, then you need to cut it out, you know? And that could go for anything. Like, for example, with sugar, with a toxic friend, toxic relationships, whatever, right? But for me, it was alcohol and weed. Like I said, I don't really do anything else. But if you feel like you can't stop smoking, and that even when you tell yourself that you're going to have a balance, you essentially just start smoking every day again, I would recommend going cold turkey for at least 2 months. For me, after like the first month was really hard, and I had like many days where I thought to myself, it's just weed, just do it, da da da. But it really came down to making a decision of sobriety. Like, I want to be sober. I don't want to wake up regretting the night before, regretting that I went back on my decision, feeling so bad within my body and mentally and spiritually because I did something that I didn't want to do again, and I overdid it. I want to be able to be sober-minded, aware of my decisions, aware of my situation, and especially because beforehand, when I was smoking, whenever I would be like high, I would just start to think about my situation in a different perspective, which was definitely not always good. A lot of the times I would be judging myself, I would be self-doubting everything that I was doing, and drinking just gave me this fake confidence that I could do anything, and essentially, like, that's not true. So if anyone needed to hear this today, and that if you are thinking about going sober, some things that have helped me, if you wonder why I'm looking around, it's because I'm in a parking lot and I like to stay aware of my surroundings. But anyway, some things that have helped me is working out, reading my Bible, journaling, and just waiting. Because I would get like random urges to do things, like, for example, whether it would be to smoke, to drink, and I'm not telling you that that's gonna go away, but you just have to pick, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to keep living the same way because your friends are doing it, because you think you've been doing it for a long time, or do you want to change and actually live in this other side where you are not depending on any substance and you're depending on God? And I'm not saying don't ever have a drink or don't ever smoke, you know, like, we all have our different convictions. So if you feel like you can smoke sometimes and you can drink sometimes and it's fine, do you know, as long as God is rooted in your life. I can't tell you what to do, but for me, I know that God was not rooted in my life when I was drinking and when I was smoking, because my mind couldn't fathom the fact that I'm having only one drink and that I'm gonna smoke maybe once a month. No, like I said, whenever I did it, I wanted to do it all the time. There was no self-control. I wanted to overdo it, and therefore I knew that God wasn't in the center. Also, a huge thing for me was that I would feel ashamed to come to God after I did those things. Like, if I was high, I wouldn't want to pray, I wouldn't want to read my Bible, I would get lazy. But the biggest thing was like me feeling like God didn't love me as much because I was doing those things. And that's not true. God loves you so much, but he also wants you to live a life that he is the center of it. But anyways, so yeah, don't think that you're not gonna want to do it, because trust me, like, a lot of the times, like, I'm constantly thinking, like, I wish that I could, like, smoke right now, or that I could have a drink right now. But essentially, like, it just doesn't hit the same for me anymore. It doesn't give me the same feeling, and it always just brings me back to, why am I doing this? Why am I trying to feel something that's outside of myself when I know that Jesus died for me and that God loves me so much? I don't need to do that. And everyone, like I said, everyone is going to have different convictions. Everyone is going to think differently. But if you are drinking, it's because you want to feel something. If you're smoking, it's because you want to feel something, unless you're just trying to fit in, and that's another whole nother story. But like I said, actually wait, because if I was to just smoke whenever I felt like it, or to just drink whenever I felt like it, I can promise you right now that my sobriety journey would have lasted me about 1 hour. So yeah, actually wait. Go to God before you go to a substance. Pray, go for a walk, talk to a friend. Have people in your life that are going to hold you accountable of your decision of going sober, or maybe at least your decision of, like, cutting down, you know, because some people are also in denial. They're like, well, I don't smoke that much, but God knows my heart. And it's like, okay, but, like, do you really understand, like, that every time that something bad happens in your life, you go and you do that? Or even if everything is okay, like, that is your way of escaping. When you truly understand that, like, you just realize that God doesn't want you to live like that. God wants you to be able to live depending on him and him only. So if you are this, like I said, once again, this is not going for the people that don't have conviction towards this and that don't have, like, the desire to stop. But if you do, then just hear me out. Pick up a new hobby. I started Pilates, I started journaling way more, I started reading, and I started going on walks. And right now I am starting running, which has been really hard. My knees hurt, my shins hurt. But anyways, get out there and do things that are going to help you with your stress relief. And if when it comes to drinking, if everyone's drinking and you don't want to drink, make sure they know, because people will try to get you to drink, and all it takes is 1 or 2 shots, at least for me, and then I'm 10 shots in, you know. But if you do want to have a cute little drink while you're at a restaurant, order a virgin drink. They taste so good. And if you are not cared about how you feel, alcohol is not going to make a difference. Get a mocktail. So yeah, pick up new hobbies. Go to God before you go to a substance, and actually sit and wait. Sit with your emotions, because I'm trying to wrap this video up, but one thing that I would really do as well would be numb my feelings and be high all the time, and then be drunk, and then now I don't even know what's going on. Like, even though I've prayed, I don't even feel better, because I don't even know what I'm praying for at this point. Like, my head was just so clouded. And just go sober for a little bit, even like a week, and you will realize the difference. And it's gonna hurt, because you actually be feeling your feelings. But yeah, if you need help too, feel free to comment, DM me on Instagram. My Instagram is sarah.louise. And I love talking about this stuff because it's hard. I constantly have dreams of myself drinking or smoking, and then I wake up and I'm like, no. Because like I said, it's not like I don't want to do it. I do want to do it, but I just know that it doesn't bring me anywhere good. But I do want to do it, but I don't want to do it enough where I'm going to go against what I know God wants for me. And I know God doesn't want me to be addicted, or he doesn't want me to be depressed. He wants me to be healed and to continue to grow in my faith. And therefore, I don't want to live drinking and smoking, especially like I was before. And yeah, choosing sobriety is probably one of the best things that I've ever done in my life. So if you want to join me, feel free to welcome.